Okay, we can pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much for such a wonderful opportunity that we may again study. And Lord, it is a knowledge that will help us be able to know how to interact with the soil, and more so also know how to work on our hearts, Lord, as we immerse ourselves in this knowledge of knowing how to work with the soil and be able to reproduce crops that will help us have good health. We pray that you may give us wisdom that comes from above. Everything that we shall speak, let it be to bring us closer to you. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Sammy, do you want to do a screen share of her, of Florence's soil test?
Yes, I'm on it in a little while. Just give me some few seconds. I'll be there.
Why not?
So I don't know. There were two things that she had, or she sent us. The one in Excel. I'll start with that. If it's not that, then you can tell me.
Okay.
If it was the
Yeah,
other
I'm sure they're both the same. They're just in two different formats, I'm assuming. I only checked the PDF.
So this is what we are having in Excel sheet.
Okay, let's
Have the PDF.
yeah, let's have the PDF. It's a little bit easier to. There we go.
And they can intercept, ask questions where they are not understanding. We can ask what we are not understanding and some way forward. So welcome, Brother Corey, for this session, and I hope it will be a blessing to us today.
So does Florence have her audio and everything working good? Can we be able to communicate with her?
Yes, I can hear you people.
Okay, good. So I guess the first thing I want to mention right off the bat, because I remember when we looked at that other soil test that you had, and we were baffled by how extremely high the calcium level was, but the pH was low. This soil test seems to reveal the truth of the matter. You guys notice with the pH 5.57, so very low pH. Very low pH, but the calcium is not excessively high like it was on your other soil test. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I can remember that.
And because that was one of the things we recommended, was to get a different soil test because something just didn't seem right there. It was very fishy with that soil test because I can't remember the exact levels, but I remember calculating it out, and the calcium levels were like just extremely high, and it was like something seems very, very wrong here to have calcium levels this high, but a pH this low. Before getting into this, how many acres is this area of mangoes?
The soil that we took was from a 5 acre, acre, but the mangoes are not covering the entire area.
Gotcha. So it's not huge, but it's good size. What kind of practices do you typically do on a yearly basis as far as fertility or anything that you apply to the soil or to the trees to feed them on a yearly basis? Do you typically have?
Maybe Sammy can help. Sammy, are you there? The other Sammy, not Wilberforce.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Sammy is the one who is actually at the farm.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's the best person to advise.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
We started working on the farm. Last year, we added lime and nitrabo from the shops, from the agrovet. And
Nitro-
apart from that, we have added the press mud, the sugarcane ash, which is coming from the factory, the sugarcane factory.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
real familiar with that.
Yeah,
thing
those
here.
are the major manures that we have added so far.
Okay.
Apart from that, we just weed normally, and any other weeds that we have uprooted, we normally put them around the mangoes, under the mangoes.
Okay. Now you said you added lime last year. Is this lime that you add, is it very powdery, or is it very coarse and, you know, like chips or anything like that? How fine is the lime?
It was a mixture of powder and coarse.
I'm sorry, I didn't, it cut out there for a second.
It was powdery and coarse.
Coarse both.
Yeah, a mixture
There.
of both.
Now is this just
I think it's the consistency of little sand, really not the very it's like, yeah, dusty with a little sand in it. Yeah.
Gotcha? Because that I'm just wondering it. I'm just wondering as far as the pH, if it brought. Do you guys have any information? Did that application of lime? How long ago was it when you guys applied some lime? About a year ago or so, or?
Yes, a year ago.
I think it's just a little about a year and over, Sammy, if I'm not wrong. It was before, was it before Corona started?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think about a year and a half.
Oh, so it's been a little while then.
Yeah.
If it was before Corona started issues.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any idea what the pH of that soil was back then, if there's been any increase? I say that because it'd be I'm sure they would even recommend getting this pH. I know personally from my own mango trees in my property, mangoes can tolerate a pretty wide range of pH. And with your pH being at 5.57, looking at the CEC of this particular soil says it's 12, but with that low of a pH, that much hydrogen in the soil, it's telling me that you have a lot of room for, there's quite a bit of room for minerals to be ultimately added if necessary in various situations. Because a low pH like this is typically telling you that this soil is going to be, it's somewhat lacking in minerals. It's not lacking in the sense of like a sand, so a sandy soil. I'm assuming the soil has a clay texture to it.
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah. It is a mix. The lower part of the farm is sandy, then the mango area is red soil, which is loamy.
Okay, the mango area is red, which you said is what?
Loam?
Okay. Loamy. Yeah, it does say that the organic matter is pretty decent. I don't know why this particular soil test has a range of up to 4% soil organic matter. Yeah, you know, I wouldn't put a limit on soil organic matter. That can get higher, and the higher that gets, the better things ultimately are. But it's a good place to be where you're at right now, at least for the time being. It's not like but you said a loamy, a sandy soil. A pure sandy soil can have a very low organic matter, and then you would have a hard time holding minerals. But it looks to me like this soil does hold minerals fairly well.
Sorry. You are asking about the previous pH?
Yes.
before we applied the lime.
Yes.
I was just looking at the test. I hope I'm reading it right, but the analysis result then was 5.8. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was from also from a different company, correct? And was
Yes, the one that we had looked at earlier, and you indicated it wasn't showing some correct figures. That's what
Right.
I've just looked at, and this is what we used before applying the lime. So they're actually the ones who recommended that we do the lime. So
Right. Yeah.
it was 5.8.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, and I think the lime is a correct recommendation here. And we got somebody that wants in. It's definitely. I'm just surprised. I'm just wondering as far as it seeming like you applied lime, but it didn't seem to make any. It's hard to say as far as what the calcium levels were, but it doesn't seem like the lime had an actual impact in bringing up the soil pH, and it's hard to say, obviously, on the calcium. I mean, that calcium level's not, even though it's low, it's not atrocious as far as, how do I say this? It is very low on a base saturation percentage. If you guys look down on the test, whoops, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm looking at Sammy. Can you scroll that down just a little bit? Down to the percentages and ratios. A little bit farther.
Is that
there we go,
point
right there. Yeah, you see where calcium says 46.6%. Typically, in most situations, you're going to want that to be up there closer to that 70 mark. So 70%. And the reason it's so low is because of all the hydrogen. You can see that the hydrogen is at 27.9%. It's showing you that there's a lot of hydrogen in the soil. And when you add lime is calcium carbonate. The carbonate will react with that hydrogen and neutralize that hydrogen.
Okay.
And that's what will get rid of the hydrogen, is the carbonate. And it's not the actual calcium. The calcium will help. The calcium will help because you'll have hydrogen that'll be attached to the soil particles, the clay particles, or the organic matter, various things like that. The hydrogen is latched onto that to stay in the soil. The calcium will help kick that off, because calcium has a +2 charge where hydrogen only has a +1. So that means that the calcium has a stronger attraction to the soil to stick into the soil and hold than the hydrogen does. So it can kick the hydrogen out into the free solution of the soil, and then the carbonate can react with it, and that will get rid of so much hydrogen in the soil, which then brings the pH up into a range that is better. Now, what is this one, Sam? You can go back up, Sammy. You can go back up to the top. I think you're in a different. Yeah, okay, we're there now. I see the pH is 5.57. I'm just wondering, I know, like lime, depending on the source of lime, and I don't have enough experience with it. I just know, like, the lime that I have available to me, it has some chunks in it, but for the most part, it's pretty powdery, and it reacts very, very fast. Now, in your guys' case, when you guys applied the lime, are you able to get it? Obviously, with trees, I'm assuming you just top dressed it, and you're not able to work it into the soil at all, like an inch or two or anything like that?
I think that is possible. Maybe Sammy, you can confirm whether that's what we did last time, but I remember digging around and putting a ring around and trying to mix it with the soil. But it was just like one spade per tree. That's what we did, about one spade per tree.
Okay, you didn't broadcast the lime over like an entire area.
We did.
Sammy?
Oh, okay, you did.
Yes, but around the trees we placed a ring. But the rest of the shamba we broadcasted.
Okay, gotcha. When you say a ring, are you referring to basically like the drip edge of the tree where the canopy ends, and you basically made kind of a trench and put calcium in around in that trench, and then recovered it, mixed it?
It was not a trench as such, but we just removed part of the soil where the canopy places its shade. Then we pour the lime.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, was any lime added between that ring and the trunk of the tree, or was it broadcast outside of that ring?
Outside of the ring.
Outside of the ring. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming when you guys took the spots where you actually take the soil test samples, I'm sorry, when you go into the field and you pull the soil samples from the ground, are you taking those samples from underneath the tree at all, or in that ring, or outside of that ring in the area where you're broadcasting? How are you doing the soil samples?
They were not under the tree. I just took random samples from different parts of the farm.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. More outside of the tree canopy.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a bigger picture here of what's going on with the application of this lime. It's hard to say.
Can I interrupt you, or you will lose the floor?
No, you go ahead.
I was asking, you asked they had used powdery or coarse lime when they were trying to rectify their soil. Is there any implications on that?
Can you say that again?
You were asking if they used powdery or coarse lime when they were applying. Did I hear you ask that?
Yes, and the reason is
there an
yeah, the reason is the coarser the lime, the longer it takes to fully react in the soil. It could take, I've seen reports where they've said that it can take 1 to 3 years for that lime to fully react in the soil and fully use up the carbonate that it's attached to, because that's what lime is calcium carbonate. So if you think of these chunks, this coarse lime, it can take longer to break down into pure calcium in the soil and do its full thing, where if it's powdery, that reacts in the soil very quickly.
Yeah, because you remember I was showing you last week how my vegetables are behaving, and we had a very powdery lime, and I think within 1 week they have changed. That is why I wanted to know why you asked that, because all of a sudden I have seen the vegetables have changed. What I did, I just took, it is so powdery, it's like just fine flour, and mixed it with some little manure, and then went and mixed with the soil of the crop beneath it, and there's a lot of changes. So that is what I wanted to know, and just say the experience I have had with the powdery one.
Yeah. So yeah, the powdery, the more powdery it is, the faster acting that lime is going to be in the soil. But anyhow, you're definitely, I'm trying to think of, let me ask you some questions on mangoes, because I know a bit about mangoes from my own area. Do you, when you guys have harvested mangoes in the past, have you had any issues? Some people call it, what do they call that? Internal breakdown of the mango near the seed, especially where the fruit isn't firm enough. It gets kind of mushy or anything like that. Have you guys had any issues with the mangoes on that, or are they nice and firm as far as the flesh on inside when that you can eat them? They're not mushy or anything like that, especially near the seed. Any issues with the fruit quality?
Sammy, you can take that.
We haven't harvested any good fruit since the mangoes were planted.
Okay. When you say haven't harvested any good fruit, can you explain to me some of the problems that you're noticing with the fruit?
The fruit normally it breaks prematurely and falls down. Then it
Okay, it
rots.
falls off the tree.
Yes,
Okay.
prematurely. Yeah.
Now, okay, so we're two different things here. Does it seem right after the tree flowers? Does it look like because you know how mango flowers look? Sometimes when they set their fruit, it can look like the tree is going to hold 1 million fruits. There's all kinds of little tiny pebbles. Is that what you see on this? And then obviously over time, those little ones, many of them fall off, and you have X amount of fruits that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So well, my first question is, initially when that tree blooms and you get a fruit set, does it look like these trees are setting a lot of tiny pebbles of fruits that would start on the tree? We're talking like the size of a, what would you, I mean, not even the size of a pea, really, really small.
Yes, they do. But after some time, they abort.
Okay. How big are they getting before they seem to abort?
Just tiny, like a millet.
What was that? How
Size. Tiny ones.
Oh, they're not getting very big. They're not even getting the. You're saying they're not even getting like the size of a pea?
He's
They're not
talking of
getting-
the size of millet. That's really tiny.
Yeah, that's really small. Yeah, millet is very small. So you're not real. Is this pretty much happening with 100% of the mangoes? You're getting like hardly any sizable fruit on it at all?
Yes, we get quite a bit of fruit. Like last time, the history of this farm is that the mangoes stayed for some time without proper care because they are far from where we were, until now we got Sammy on the ground and he started taking care of them. But now they were grown. So they were not fruiting, they were not flowering enough. But now when we started taking care of them, now they started fruiting and flowering. So we have seen good progress over time, right? Because now they're able to fruit, after the calcium and all that, they fruited well. It's just that some of them were still getting aborted. But now last time they were able to produce a lot of fruit. Some of them were coming to the point of ripening, but they were not very sweet. Occasionally you will find a very sweet one, but the rotting level is high and the breaking level is high. So that's how I would describe it. But that we've seen improvement over time as we are trying to understand, what to do at what point and all that, and even putting like traps, fly traps and all that. So we
Right.
saw a very big improvement and a lot of fruiting. It's just that they were not ripening, and even if they did, they were not very sweet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then another thing, it is fungal infection.
Fungal infections on the fruit, skin,
No, normally
No,
on
on the tree.
on the tree. Is it, are these, are you getting, and I know a common one, are you getting infections on the flowers themselves? When it flowers, are you getting like powdery mildew or anything
Not
like
very
that?
much. Not very much.
Okay, because I know that's common in my area to get powdery mildew on the flowers, and that can, if it gets bad, it can cause the tree to lose all of its fruit. But
Okay.
typically, I'll explain to you, when a tree flowers, this is pretty much across the board. When a tree flowers, the first stage that it's going to go through is pollination, and you get fruit set. And you're looking for that fruit. It will be just really, really tiny, and it might get up to, over the course of typically 2 weeks approximately, that fruit is going through what is known as the cell division stage. That cell division stage, that fruit is developing all the cells that it's going to have in that first few weeks. After that point, after those first couple of weeks, that cell division stops. And the next thing that begins is fruit fill. The fruit begins to grow and expand. Those cells are being filled with sugar and various things, minerals, proteins, things like that is what is happening in that fruit, and it's expanding. And it's there's a couple of things that could be going on here. If you're losing a huge majority of the fruit to begin with, there could be a cell division problem that's happening, and therefore a lot of your tiny fruits are they're just not really properly forming, and they're getting aborted. Now, the two biggest minerals that have, from what I understand, that have to do with that early stage of cell division, when those tiny little fruitlets are forming, is calcium and boron. Boron is the mineral that helps with the transportation of calcium. And if you scroll this down, Sammy, you can see that boron is lacking quite a bit in this soil, and that's very common of a lot of soils, because boron is probably, I believe it is the most leachable nutrient that there is in the soil. Boron just easily leaches right there. You see that it's at 0.38 parts per million. So it's a very low boron level. You'd want to see it typically between at least 1 and 2. Like I said, so boron, because calcium is a very sluggish mineral. So that calcium, because of the low boron, is going to be having a hard time getting to that fruit to get that cell division going properly and get that early stage set for it to then get fruit fill. So I would imagine a fair amount of your problem is related to this issue of boron and calcium initially, but then you are getting some fruits going. The next stage is, like I said, the fruit fill. And this is typically where potassium is the key component here. Potassium is the nutrient that is going to shuttle sugars and everything to those fruits. I had to do some more. I know manganese can play a role here in the whole scheme of things, but you got plenty of manganese, actually excessive manganese. Whether or not, now the thing with manganese is a lot of it is probably oxidized and not plant available. So soil tests are very difficult to tell from the manganese level alone, whether or not the tree is getting proper manganese, but I wouldn't concentrate on that particular at this point. But the potassium is, as far as the percentage, it's not horrible. You definitely have room to increase potassium, but I'll tell you what, my mango trees have far less potassium than that. And I'm getting good. I'm having some problems with my mangoes, but I'm getting still quite a few fruit, fully developed and good fruit. Oh, here's Joshua. Good, we got him in. So you do have potassium, and maybe now that Joshua is here, we can fill him in, because just so everybody knows, Joshua is a consultant for Advancing Eco Agriculture. He's been doing this stuff for a long time. I'm not sure yet if he's got much experience with mangoes down here in Florida, but I'm going to suspect that there may be a link to the because your phosphorus levels are like exceptionally low. I remember Sammy, when we had the soil test with you, and you also had, in many ways, your soil was very similar. The soil test that you had, Sammy, was very similar to this right here. You had the exceptionally low phosphorus levels. Do you remember that, Sammy? I'm sorry, Sammy Wilberforce. Two different Sammys.
Yeah. I had just opened my document, and you can see phosphorus and the manganese just the same, like her soil test analysis. Actually, it's like everything is almost the same. The pH is a little bit higher, but her pH is a little bit low. That is the difference I'm noticing.
Now, the soil that you had tested, Sammy Wilberforce, Sammy, as far as you know, is it pretty similar to the soil that Florence and the other Sammy have? Because it's interesting, like I said, it's interesting how similar the results are. You have a bit more. You actually have a bit more. You have a bit more nutrients in yours than what they do, but it's interesting how similar it is.
I don't know whether it could be because I don't know whether some of yours is sugarcane growing area, because this farm used to be, I mean, it's in a sugarcane growing area. Before we took it over, they were using it for sugarcane plantation. Mm-hmm. So maybe there are certain similarities.
Okay.
Yeah. Sister Florence, my soil is a little bit rocky. It's not long, but our garden was not used for sugarcane, but the surrounding places were used for sugarcane, but our soil has been used for sugarcane.
You're breaking up a little bit on my end, Sammy, so I didn't hear you very well.
Yeah, I was just saying that her soil is a little bit different from mine, and even her soil is low. Mine is like a rock soil and a little, what can I say? A little
more clay?
Something.
You had a little bit more clay content?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's probably why, yeah, your nutrient levels are a little bit higher. Let's see if we can bring Joshua into this discussion. You there? You hearing us, Joshua?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up, guys. Good morning.
Morning, rise and shine.
Yeah, nice and early this morning. So I'm glad to be here. You mentioned the low phosphorus, and
yeah. Well, first off, let me just give you a little bit. We're going over Sister Florence, the soil. Remember when we did that? You were there for the one meeting we had, and she had a soil test, and it wasn't a very good quality soil test. It showed the pH was really low, but it had excessively high calcium. And it was like, what's going on? And we recommended her to get a new soil test for her mangoes. This is for her mango plot. And so she got this new soil test, the same one that Sammy did. And that's what we're looking at here to try to understand what's going on. So that gives you kind of a background of what we're looking at. And one of the issues they've talked about having is the fruit set dropping exceptionally very high amount of fruit drop, which I mean, it seems to be kind of common with mangoes to have a fair amount, but mangoes can also hold a lot of fruit too, the trees typically. But and then she was saying that some of the fruit eventually end up rotting or having problems with it, and the ones that they're harvesting ultimately aren't very sweet. And so we kind of talked about the calcium boron aspects of this in her soil a bit, and we were just getting ready to address the phosphorus in this particular context, but maybe you can kind of look at the soil test a little bit as you get a second here and give some input to this fruit fill issue that they may be potentially experiencing in her mangoes in this. Sammy, what happened to this Wilberforce? What happened to the screen sharing on the, there it is. Okay, it's back. So can you see the soil test, Joshua?
I had it a minute ago. Now I see it.
It's on the, he's sharing it now. It should be up now, hopefully. I can see it.
No, I can't see it right this second. I don't know.
Is anybody else having problems seeing the screen share?
For a moment, Corey, my internet broke up, but it's back. I don't know any else apart from the two of us.
Oh, you want me to do the
can-
screen share, Sammy? Because I have it. I have the soil test right here.
There it is.
Then you can take it down and I'll do the screen. Oh no, he sees it now.
But if it goes down, you can share your screen, Corey.
Okay. So here's this, and Joshua, just let him know if you want him to scroll this down so you can see like the base saturation and stuff like that.
I can do that on my own. Thank you. I can see it.
Okay. Like the calcium base percentage is 46.6%.
Yeah, I saw that. So even though you got plenty of calcium, it's saying you're saying you need calcium to displace that hydrogen. Interesting, early on when when you're in cell division stage and cell differentiation stage, in citrus, that lasts quite a while. I think we bloom in March, and then it's usually they call it May drop or June drop, right? And that's the finishing of that period. And so I wonder what the critical points of influence or how long that lasts with mangoes. But it's super important to get your reproductive elements to a level that is appropriate so that the plant can not have to make a decision on whether it's going to be able to grow wood that year or it's going to be able to grow fruit. We need enough energy to grow both, and that process starts before bloom, and having your calcium levels at a point to where that with the cell division stage, it divides by always 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So it divides upon itself based on how many nutrients it has and we want it to divide as many times as possible so that when that fruit is growing, it just blows up like a balloon. If we don't have the right reproductive elements at that point, then there's a lot of things that can throw it off. And it's really the plant choosing that this year it doesn't have enough energy to hold all that fruit, or it didn't have enough calcium or energy during cell division stage. You know, you see your phosphorus, that's your energy. And it's very curious that your phosphorus is super low. I definitely think that if that's a true statement, which I'm still not sure if that's true, that we don't have any phosphorus there.
Remember, Sammy's soil test was also exceptionally low. His was like 3 or 4 parts per million.
Wow.
So it may be a common, it's starting to look like a kind of a common thing for this particular area of the world, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just, I mean, I don't know if the soil is naturally low in phosphorus or if it's just really super bound up. In this particular case, what are we?
Yeah.
We really high, really low pH, so would be, and there's not a lot of zinc or anything for it to be bound up to. I mean, what would it be bound up to at this low of a pH? Iron, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, but that is like, it's so off. Your phosphorus numbers are like the exact opposite of what we have here in Florida.
It's interesting. I did run across a ranch last week down in Southwest Florida that also had very low phosphorus. It's the first time I've seen that. And being that it was a sugarcane field, and maybe sugarcane was really, I still say that you've probably got phosphorus, but I just wonder that if that's not a major part of your manganese being super high, actually higher than your iron, could be locking out iron for photosynthesis. But your manganese is one of those reproductive elements, and you've got that. But the phosphorus, definitely would be something I would look at. And your potassium is good as far as, you know, at the end, filling fruit.
I was explaining to her that my potassium levels and my mango trees are far lower than this, and I've had I would say at least pretty decent mango fruit set and growth. There's definitely lots of room for improvement if I had more potassium in my soil, but I mean, my latest test on my soil test for one of my mangoes showed 38 parts per million. That was after the season and everything, but 38 parts per million is much lower in potassium than this. And I got quite a few mangoes off from that tree. Now, it probably was a bit higher before during the fruit fill stage and everything like that. It used up probably some of that potassium, but it's just a point taken that, you know, she does have somewhat decent potassium levels. So I don't know if that's the weakest link here. Maybe some boron issues, like you said, helping that calcium in that cell division stage, and whatever phosphorus.
We're so dominated. I mean, I guess we're dominated by hydrogen, I guess is why we're so acidic.
Yeah.
And even though it appears we have plenty of calcium, magnesium, and potassium, they all look good, but with the phosphorus showing so low, so it's not an anion imbalance. There's no sulfur, there's no phosphorus. So according to this test, which I still not sure about, but we're pushing that pH down, which is tying up our calcium, you know. So interesting test.
When I'm assuming even with, I know just my experience with mangoes, like I said, they're pretty tolerant. Sammy and Florence, can you guys add, when you look at your mango trees, your leaves and stuff, I'm going to take an assumption here. The leaves are probably pretty dark colored, pretty dark green. They look, the leaves probably look pretty good and healthy for the most part, or is there a lot of disease issues or anything on the leaves of these trees?
After applying the lime and the nitrogen, the leaves became dark green, but before that they were yellowish, brownish. They had a lot of diseases, but now they have improved.
Okay, so that's the improvements you had from, you said nitrogen application and lime original. That was a lot, a couple years ago, right?
Just last year.
Just last year.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they were mentioning when we were talking about calcium early on, what they did with when that a year or so ago, they applied calcium lime, and they kind of did like a small trench around the drip edge of the trees, and then broadcast lime outside of that trench. So they put the lime in that kind of that trench, or whatever you want to call it, ring around the drip edge of the tree and outside of it. But they said that they didn't put any calcium or anything actually under the tree itself. I guess I always fertilize my trees even under the trees too, not just at the drip edge. I know a lot of people recommend drip edge. Do you have much experience, thought on that, Joshua, with when you're doing applications and stuff like that underneath the trees, or are you always working on the drip edge and outside of the drip edge like that?
Well, I think there's a case could be made for both. We certainly don't want to concentrate it underneath the tree,
Right,
because we don't want those, we want those roots growing out, but
right.
there are a lot of roots under the drip edge that probably could use, you know, especially when we're talking about lime. I think you could put it anywhere. I think you should. I think it should be, it's in the soil profile we're looking at. If you're talking about fertilizer in the way of nitrogen, then I'd be a little bit more cautious to concentrating it. But that's my experience, is we typically, you know, depending on the amendment, I guess is the right answer there, Corey. But we typically would put some under the tree as well, as you're suggesting.
Maybe if I can interject, Kido, a little. What I've seen with the trees is that we have dug around the stem about 1 meter round. Okay, so that 1 meter round, at the edge of that 1 meter is where, you know, we were putting this lime around it. Okay.
Okay,
so it was not the entire drip, you know, the shade area, because these mango trees are a little bigger than that 1 meter. So you can't say, you know, that 1 meter is the shade area totally.
Okay.
There's an extension that perhaps, you know, may have just benefited from what we were broadcasting, in the entire farm. But the concentration on the tree was just about the 1 meter round the stem, because that's where we dug up. Yes.
Okay, so that's that you're applying for the most part. Then you're applying mostly under a fair amount of the tree canopy. Then you're saying you're just moving it out a meter is what, 3 foot approximately or so away from the trunk.
Yes, away from the trunk, just about 1 meter.
Gotcha.
Fine.
Yeah, I don't.
So what is ideal? If I can ask a question, what is ideal? Should it be under the entire shade area? Did we restrict ourselves too much, or we should spread it out?
Oh, I would say you're probably okay at that. I mean, you're talking basically 3 feet. That's, I mean, I don't think you're probably going to have much of a significant issue or difference there. One, depending on how big those trees are, obviously. Obviously, if the trees, what is the diameter of the trunk on these trees? If it's quite small, if we're talking about a few inches, then yeah, there's still probably roots in that area to work. But if we were talking about a trunk that is, you know, a foot in diameter, and these are getting to be pretty big trees, the feeding roots are probably getting, you know, spread out much farther than they've probably used up the nutrients in that area, and they've moved on that couple foot outside of that trunk. Is what I'm thinking.
Sammy, can you tell them the size of the trees? Because I think they're about 7 years old.
7 years old. Okay, so yeah, my trees are 5 years old. So you're probably getting what, 7, 8 inches trunk diameter?
Yes, 7, 8.
Okay.
And Sister Florence?
Yes.
Hello, Sister Florence.
Yes.
Can I request something? Maybe
Yeah.
can Sam just go in the farm with the phone and be a little bit there? And okay, he has shared some photos. Let me see if I can share this.
Okay.
But he can go in the farm with the phone, and we can just see what you're talking about. Can you see, guys, this?
Okay.
Oh, that is it. Thank you, Brother Sam. Thank you. This is what we are talking about.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, these trees are. Okay. They're much smaller than I had pictured.
Can you see the effects, Corey?
Gotcha. Okay, splitting. That's calcium issue. I'm sure Joshua will mention that.
Yes.
You're not getting good cell division early on. So when you start getting fruit fill, it's just blowing the fruit apart.
Correct.
And that's a problem that happens. It begins before it ever happens. During that cell division, whether it's an issue of actual calcium or boron not delivering the calcium. You could also obviously calcium is dependent on, like, you know, on tomatoes, you can get blossom end rot if you don't have irrigation. How's the irrigation when you guys, as far as your guys' mango trees, and the season? I know you're getting ready to start blooming here soon, and then the fruit fill and everything over the next few months. Are you guys in the dry season at that time, or are you guys getting rain at that particular time when these mangoes are developing and stuff? And if not, do you guys have irrigation? Because I know irrigation can have a big impact on whether or not calcium is getting into the tree.
Sammy?
When they are blooming, it is normally rainy season. But when they are fruiting, when the fruit has become big, it is normally a dry season.
Right. Which I know for mangoes, that can help if it's dry, a little bit drier, when mangoes are getting basically ready to be harvested. I know that can help with some of the issues of disease on the outside of the skin, where I know, like in Florida, we have such a rainy summers, and that's, our mangoes are on the trees in our rainy summers, and people start to have disease issues on the mangoes and losing mangoes during the rains and stuff. But do you have irrigation on these trees? Or are you fully reliant on the rains?
The place seems to have sufficient rain throughout the year, but when it gets really dry, that's when we can irrigate, but that's not common.
Okay,
Yes.
but you do have the ability to irrigate when you need it.
Yes.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe you're getting adequate water.
Yes.
when the trees, how about when the trees, I'm just curious with the, especially with this phosphorus level, the Joshua mentioned the energy of the tree. You're saying these trees are like 7 years old, and 7 years old. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go outside and get a picture of one of my mango trees. My mango trees are probably what, they're now 5 years old, and they're probably what, maybe 3 times the size of your mango trees. Now, obviously, you guys are trying to, I'm assuming maybe you're trying to prune these and keep them at a certain size, maybe, or are they
Yes.
just slow? What I'm getting at is when the trees are not flowering and holding fruit, how are they growing throughout the year? Does it seem like the growth is sluggish and slow and not much happening?
They were sluggish in their first years because they were, as I told you, they were really not well taken care of because of the people who are looking after them. But then recently now we have taken a lot of care, and we had to prune, like I think a few months ago, there was a lot of pruning that was done because they were very bushy and big headed. So that pruning was done like a few months ago.
Okay, but yeah, typically, I'm assuming that's like right after most people do their mango pruning right after harvest.
You see, only when you are expecting a good fruit, then you'll wait for that harvest. But when you see they are breaking up and rotting,
right,
you sometimes just want to do it and be ready for the next
right.
year.
Go ahead and start working on next year.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So when you said you put lime, how much lime did you put?
Like a spade per, it was 1 spade per tree, Sammy. It was 1 spade
no,
per tree.
Sammy. Oh, okay.
It was 1 spade per tree.
Okay. Okay. And Sammy, are you?
I don't.
I was going to say, Sister Florence, the video never really came out. I didn't know if Sammy was still out there. I still would like to see them.
Yeah, I think he's gone off. I'll just try and get hold of him.
Oh,
that's
you didn't
okay.
get the
That's
picture?
okay.
You didn't get the picture, Joshua?
No, it was, yeah, I had to walk outside.
It was out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Right when it went off, I was able to see it. But
yeah, maybe that can get posted again.
Yeah, it looks like he's starting a screen sharing, but it's my video, I think. So sorry about this, guys. I just feel like even though your calcium number is good, I still feel like oh yeah. I see.
They said the soil is a loamy soil. The CEC in this says 12 something. It just seems like without that hydrogen, it's telling us that there's a lot of room. There's actually more capacity and more room.
Yes. Correct.
Not even higher, even though to us, our Florida standards, we're looking at that. Hey, that looks like good levels of calcium, but
yeah, your
soil has more capacity than what we have.
Yes. Correct. And you got, yeah. I think calcium's going to be your key again, guys. And then, so when will they go into bloom then? When will this?
30 days.
In the next 30 days. Do you have a full year?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Go back to that picture. Go back to that picture that was just shown. Because I remember her saying something. Did I see a bunch of onions in there?
Yes.
Interesting cover crop choice. Can you guys bring that picture back up with the onions? There we go. What are your thoughts on this, Josh? I don't know if you got the picture, Joshua. Yeah.
Trying to come up, but it's so.
When it comes up, you'll see that basically you're looking at a mango orchard with quite extensive onion cover crop around it.
Okay.
I've never seen that before. It's kind of interesting. I just know that I'm curious about is I don't know much about using onions in this particular way and stuff, but I know onions are typically quite heavy feeders.
Yeah. Yeah. How do the onions do? I wonder. As far as the bulb, is there splitting in the onions?
They're not bulb onions. They are spring onions. They're not doing badly. It was just one season that we did.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you saying they're heavy feeders?
Depending on probably the type, you're saying these particular onions don't produce a big bulb?
They are spring
Yeah,
onions.
small onions. Okay.
Okay.
Spring onions, yeah.
So I don't know. I just know that typically, I know like your bigger regular onions are considered quite heavy feeders, surprisingly. You probably wouldn't think that looking at them, but everybody always says that onions are quite heavy feeders. So just wondering about that as far as the competition with the mangoes. Are those onions growing? Were those onions growing? Were they there at that time and growing when the mangoes were flowering and fruiting?
Yes, they were in a portion of the farm, not the whole place, because the mangoes are about 80. So
Okay.
we had just the onions on certain parts, not the whole farm. But the problem of mangoes was across board.
Okay, same issues everywhere.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do like that you're having more of you're putting something in there in the ground. I think that's a good idea. Whether it's onions or whatever it might be, I would definitely recommend that practice of growing things throughout the growth.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, what you're doing. You can experiment with other things and stuff, other types of crops and stuff in that situation. But that's a good practice you don't often see.
Yeah, I agree. Having diversity is good, and that's the more we can maximize, every area of growing. It's going to be better for the soil, and we obviously the more diversity is going to be better for us too. Yeah, I think the leaves are a bit small. The zinc is pretty low in the soil, and I wonder if we need a bit of zinc.
Yeah, there's
Sister Florence, I would say if there was an ability to is there an ability to foliar spray at all, or is that outside of your capacity?
I think we can. Sammy, you're there. Can you respond to the foliar spray? Sammy?
Too bad Sam is having an issue with his audio.
Okay.
although
He may just log up and
with
then
that
log in.
I would say with that pH, any application to zinc in the soil the zinc should be very easily available.
Yes, I just be careful. I mean, I think we had to probably address phosphorus and zinc at the same time.
Yeah, because right now we have a 2-to-1 ratio in favor of zinc.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. So phosphorus is really, we need to get the phosphorus up, and as we get the phosphorus up, then we probably can start adding zinc. And in the meantime, we might add zinc to the foliar with calcium. You got a lot of manganese in your soil. I'd be surprised to see it in the tissue. If you're familiar with Corey is John Kemp's Accelerate product. It's a heavy dose of seaweed so that you get your cytokinin I'm I don't know how much study you got auxins and cytokinins, and so when we going into fruit production, we want to flip flop those hormones.
So Sammy is there in the farm. Maybe we can have a look.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Sammy, you can zoom in a little.
On the mangoes,
Yes.
this is one of them.
Asid Shah, maybe you can mute.
I see there's some banana in there too.
Yeah, there's banana, and a part of the garden also has the bulb onions, the lower part of it.
Right.
Yeah, where there are no mangoes. Yeah, so
The apples, yeah, because it said about apples too. Apples are in a totally different
yes,
area.
there are
all by
also
themselves.
there are also apples. Maybe he can at one point move. We see the apples because even those are a problem. They should have been producing already, but you find you get 1 or 2 fruits, they drop the flowers. But we realized that there were certain things we were not doing right. So yeah, we are working on them right now.
So you got a same issue, reproductive issues.
Yes, that's why. Yes, we gave them the 2 fruits. Yes.
Now apples. What variety of apple are these?
There is a variety here in Kenya, which is a mix of an indigenous one they found in Mount Kenya, and I think, I'm not too sure, but it's called Wambugu apples. They are very good. They are very sweet. They do very well.
Okay, you said they were found up on a mountain, or
yeah, Mount Kenya. Yeah.
Is it, how high is it? Because what I'm wondering at, because I'm assuming you guys don't really get, because I was asking Sammy this morning, I told him it was about 9 degrees Celsius here, which is pretty chilly. That's what we call, chill hours. But he said you guys never get that low in temperature. Typically, apples need some chill hours during their dormant. I'm assuming they have a dormant period where their leaves fall off and they basically have a dormant period, because if, at least how, I'm just curious about these type of apples, whether or not they need those chill hours and cool. When you guys, I'm assuming you really don't get down to 10 degrees Celsius, do you?
No.
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 You don't. So you don't get that chill. Do the leaves ever fall off these apple trees?
Not.
Sammy, go.
No.
Do that up on the. So you said they were found, the original apple trees are up on a mountain. How does it get cooler up there on that mountain?
Yes, Mount Kenya is cool, but that's where they get their, I don't know what you call it. I'm not very good in these things, but I think, is it the root? What? Sammy, what was the name of that? The root? Okay, these apples basically do well in both dry and cool places. And they have various farms that, they have worked on, and you can see the results. So even, it's really not a question of the weather. They do well in that area and even in other parts of the country, which are dry and which are wet. Yes.
Okay, so there are other people growing these apples that have success.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I would like to.
Sammy, maybe Sammy should just walk to one of them. You'll be able to see.
I wonder how that cultivar would do in Florida. I'd like to.
They actually export it a lot right now because they've noted it is very sweet, and they just grow it organically actually, and it works very well. Yeah.
But yeah, if you're having okay. Yeah, it looks like once again, reproductive issues, boron, calcium,
I
phosphorus.
need to speak a little bit so that we may see the picture. If he speaks, you will see the picture. Because it will
Sammy,
bring
you can
him
talk.
up on the screen.
This is one of the apples, and they are going.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks just like apple trees.
Sammy, you can
you
talk so that
okay?
your picture becomes big. Continue talking.
Yeah, continue talking so that way we're seeing you.
Okay, these are the apples that we have on the farm. Can you get me?
Yeah, yep, we're seeing
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, these are the few apples that we have. We have 10 trees, and they normally don't go into dormancy. Most of the time they have their leaves. The only problem is the drying of the leaves. You can see.
Mhm.
Yeah, but at the same tree, some are flowering. I hope you can see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So most of the time they produce only 1 or 2 or 3 apples. Then after that they don't produce again, and they abort the flowers.
And when I inquired from those people, they told me they were able to detect that there was a root stem that, became stronger than the other one. Yeah. So we had to remove the root stems for it to be able to, these are the ones we removed. Yes.
Those are shoots coming below I'm assuming these trees are grafted. It's probably shoots
they are
coming
grafted.
from below
So
the grass.
the root stem, grew bigger than the others. We were not able to detect that. But when we showed them the pictures, they were able to detect. And so they told us to prune the root stem out.
Yeah.
Then they'll be able now to flower more aggressively and produce more fruit. That's what we've done.
Yeah, and grafted trees, especially apples, stuff like that, they can shoot out shoots below that graft, and then you got the rootstock growing, and it will steal all the energy from the tree. You want to definitely make sure those get pruned off. Keep an eye on that because they'll probably try to come back. But yeah, stealing energy from the tree once again. Yeah, it really, when you were I don't know about the apples, and I'm not sure if Joshua, I'm assuming you being in Florida all your life, you probably don't have a lot of experience with apples, I'm assuming, you personally. I know obviously AEA does, but
yeah, my PNW guys have a lot of experience on apples, but no, I don't. I've never grown any apples myself, but I'm going to assume it's going to be a 2-year crop as well, where you're building, similar to citrus, I would think, where you need to build that leaf and that support system in order to hold fruit, in the following year. And then the energy to fill that fruit comes from that stems that you built in the year prior. Again, going back to having a lack of phosphorus, lack of energy, a lack of growth, a lack of root. I mean, if you didn't grow roots, it's because you don't have any phosphorus. So the plant's trying to overcome for that. I feel very strongly, if you're about to go into this cell division stage, that if we can put some well-timed foliars out there, and maybe we can overcome this critical point of influence that tree really needs to be successful. Maybe Corey and I could work on something. I don't know what you have access to there, but we can overcome some of these deficiencies in the soil by specifically putting it on top of the tree and allowing the tree to have it just enough for the next week. And we do it again until that period is over. And then it's not so critical that we have it there, even though we do need to make those adjustments to the soil, as time permits and finances permit. And obviously having the right amendment is obviously important as well. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I want to come visit. That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
maybe Sammy, you can give us recommendations on what we can do for each of the fruits and
that is where I was going, because Corey and Joshua, looking at the Graham soil report analysis on what is happening with her farm, there are 4 major things that Graham mentions for what is happening. And I know the two of you maybe can chip in and let us try to do the process of elimination of what is needed and what is not needed.
Yeah.
Point number one, he says that one of the reasons why we have such a cases is inadequate soil moisture. So are we having an inadequate soil moisture from what you guys have seen? Can we eliminate that point, or what can we say about it?
It seems based on what they had mentioned that they have pretty consistent rainfall and that they have irrigation if it does get too dry. I'm assuming without being there and seeing it and everything that water's not their weakest problem here.
Okay. That one really, it has been addressed because they are saying that they are having.
Whoops, we just lost Sammy Wilberforce. I'm sure he'll be back. I know he's been having problems with his internet connection. But he's wanting to, it seems like, I think Joshua had mentioned the same thing. It's the energy of the tree. Phosphorus seems to be like the big hiccup, which is, you call your trees are lacking in energy. And then there's a problem with the cell division stage related to calcium boron. And then we did notice that it's okay, there's potassium, so it doesn't seem like potassium is causing the fruit fill problem. It's probably more to do with the overall energy of the tree. Again, phosphorus, the small leaves on the mango tree from zinc. But I guess, like, I think Joshua's big point about the foliar spraying, the reason he's really getting at that is because you guys are about to start bloom here any day. So soil applications is a bit too late right now to save the upcoming season. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to look at it and figure out, okay, what can we do to so you can get a crop this year? And that's probably going to be looking into the foliar feeding avenue. And so I think that's where he's kind of going right now, because yeah, we do want to address the soil issues, but we're just, you're so close to blooming time that any soil applications are going to be a bit too late. Is that correct, Joshua? For this season?
Yes, that is. I mean, even on my farms here in Florida, where we're constantly making adjustments. We use the foliars to overcome. Like, sometimes you can only fix it so much in one season, and then you'll have to continue, or we'll do several applications trying to get it up to a level. Obviously we are talking about chemistry, and biology trumps chemistry, as Corey has said, and Graham has said. I wonder what is your practices on the biological side of things, harvesting some of these minerals that are in the soil and getting them into the tree. Are you feeding any, you got good carbon there, 3.5%. So you probably got good carbon. That could be the other part, Corey, is just with all these other issues, we're not getting release of carbon dioxide. With the rain, we should be. So I just wondering, maybe some food sources to spin that biology up, or just curious what your practices are on that.
Have you guys like, I know one of the recommendations from the soil testing company is manures. And in this particular case, have you guys used any manures, composts, or anything like that in your system that would boost biology support? And also, typically you'll find some phosphorus in manures, especially chicken manure, if you can get chicken manure. And I know there was a recommendation for nitrogen. So I'm just curious, what do you have in biology aspects? And
we have access to cow manure.
Oh.
Yes, we also have access to chicken manure
Okay.
and also the press mud from the sugar factory. So maybe just we need to know which one is better for the problems that we have.
Yeah, I would say that the chicken manure is going to be the highest in phosphorus, isn't it, Joshua?
Yes, I believe that would be correct. And it would have some potassium as well, which you could still stand a bit of potassium, so I wouldn't be too worried about that, but I'd be careful about building it too high. But yes, chicken manure could be a good source for you.
Now, how, as far as quantity, I mean, because you said you have basically, up to you have a 5-acre plot there to work with. Obviously, it's not all covered, but what about quantity of? You said you have access to chicken manure. How's the quantity of that to be able to use it in your size of a system?
Okay, for mangoes, we are only talking about 80 mangoes. Then the other crops, we maybe can use another type of manure. We have access to free press mud, if that can work. That one we can get in plenty. Chicken manure is a little expensive for the big space that we are talking about,
Gotcha.
but we used it when we were doing the bulb onions. So we were able to plant the bulb onions with chicken manure, and we're able to use it also for the apples. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the sugarcane. You're talking about a sugarcane product. The
Yeah,
leftovers from that?
byproduct is called press mud.
Okay, that's what they
Yeah.
call it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that to know what minerals are ultimately going to be in that. Do you know much about that, Joshua?
No, I do not.
Okay, maybe we can find out next time. We can tell you what it contains from the
Yeah,
factory.
just do some research. If you just do some
Yeah.
research on it and you see that, hey, this stuff, the leftover stalks and everything of this of
Yeah, when
sugarcane is
they are
high in
cleaning, yes.
phosphorus.
Yes, when they are cleaning it out and removing all the mud and all that stuff, they'll go and dump it somewhere. And usually when we use it like in maize and where we plant the maize and the beans and all that, it really does very well, very, very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd imagine the soil is going to be the same in there. Is the soil the same in these other areas, basically?
We have two chunks of land. One is a bit, Sammy, what do you call it? The lower part, swampy. And the upper part it's like different types of soil. Sammy, maybe you can chip in.
Okay.
The lower part is like clay or black cotton soil. Can you get me?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but the 5 acres, it is loamy and sandy.
Okay. Good. So let's maybe we can get back to Joshua's questions on the foliar spraying. I guess I don't remember if Sammy said anything. Do you guys have much experience with foliar spraying and your access to various foliar sprays, even if it's at like a compost tea or something, anything? Products.
For foliar, we have been buying from the agrovet. We have not sprayed any natural foliar, but before we sprayed pepper and neem and garlic oil, but I don't think they were foliars. They were acting as insecticides.
Right.
Or
Yeah. Right. Well, we're talking about mineral supplying, particularly.
Normally, we apply are from the agrovet. We have not yet tried any natural foliar, but we have the natural sunflower, which you want to soak in water, then spray after 3 weeks or so.
Okay. Now,
Or what can you recommend?
okay, if we're talking, I'm sure Joshua can really put. Actually, we'll let Joshua kick in here. When they're getting ready to bloom on their, particularly on their mangoes here shortly, if we're looking at a foliar spray, Joshua, to get them kickstarted and try to get something out of this particular crop. I'm assuming we're particularly looking at, for that stage, calcium and boron. Anything else? Is there anything else? And what might they be able to get as far as calcium and boron for a foliar spray in that particular situation that's coming up here very shortly? And anything else besides calcium and boron that you would recommend in this early initial stage of getting ready to pop bloom? You are muted.
I'm muted. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the calcium and boron, I mean, as far as the amendments you guys have access to, I'm not sure, but you know, what I would add to that would be phosphorus, manganese, and then if you had access to some sort of plant hormone like a cytokinin, like a seaweed or an algae, to add to that, can really help the stress level of the plant. And what we typically do is probably in a range of, primarily calcium is only, really mobile from the bottom up. But we can definitely influence with a couple applications in this time period, by bringing up, like Corey mentioned, calcium, boron, and then I'll say phosphorus, manganese, for reproduction, and then even some sea salt. A little bit at that period could give you some trace elements and minerals. And that in the seaweed as well, it has iodine and it has some other really good stress relieving compounds in that. So we have a product called Accelerate, and it's basically those minerals mixed together, and we use that as a bloom elicitor, and we pretty much stay on that until we finish that period. And whatever we've done in the soil, we've done in the soil. And then we still foster that reproduction. I did send a John Kemp on WhatsApp about reproductive minerals. So I encourage everybody to take a listen to that. And that could be helpful. But, that's kind of what I have. I think the phosphorus is definitely a limiting factor in for you guys in the reproduction side of things. So, go ahead.
What kind of products do you think might be potentially available over there for them in that area of phosphorus, calcium?
Well, we use soft rock
foliar spray in the immediate.
I don't know if you have any soft rock phosphate. That's what we use, crushed down and then reconstituted. That has calcium and phosphorus in it. Is there any chance that is something that's mined in your area or left over? Probably not, huh?
Not to mention having a company. I mean, you guys are a rare company that has an actual CalPhos foliar spray product. That's kind of rare, isn't it?
It's Sammy has got something. Corey, there is just a product that we got recently from a company. I think they bring it from China. Sammy has it there. Sammy, if you can speak and just show it, and then that's what we've been using as a foliar.
Okay.
In the last 2 to 3 weeks, I think.
Yes.
Okay. What is this?
What are your recommendations about this? Because they said it is very good, and it helps in, I think, not very visible. We have been spraying for the past 2 weeks, and tomorrow in the morning we'll also spray.
Okay.
What do you
Can you
think?
tell us what's in it? Can you tell us the minerals that's in it?
Let me see. Mhm. We haven't. Okay. It is here. They say nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, manganese, and the copper.
Okay, so it's basically a little bit of everything, almost,
Yes.
with the exception of boron. But at least it's got. Do you see any? Is there any? And the next to each mineral, is there like any percentages? Often there'll be like a percentage. Is there any percentages listed for each mineral?
No, they haven't placed any percentages.
Okay.
Yeah. The only amount placed here, it is how to mix and spray. In a 20-liter knapsack, the amount you are supposed to put.
Right.
Yeah.
I have used it on vegetables, and when you spray it, like in the next 2 to 3 days, you see them, greener and livelier and better.
Okay.
Yes, I've done that for after 2 to 3 days, I've seen the results. I've just not been to the farm since we sent it over, so I don't know whether Sammy would confirm that there is a change in the color of the leaves and in their strength, and they grow with more vigor, especially for the vegetables. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. I would assume even with your mangoes right now at this particular stage, since they're getting ready to bloom, that tree is probably going to be concentrating on those buds. I don't know if you see the buds swelling yet for the mangoes.
Sammy, can you tell us what you found when you sprayed with the mangoes? Was there any change yet? Because they said we have to spray consecutively for 4 weeks. Once a week for 4 weeks.
For the mangoes, there is no very big change, but for the apples, they have flowered and the leaves are greener.
Yeah. Yeah. At this stage with your mangoes, I'm assuming you probably wouldn't see much of a visual situation with your mangoes, and the reason is because your mangoes are probably developing that bud to burst open here anytime. So but you are getting, if you're spraying, and this stuff has some valuable things in it for that, it is preparing and helping that bloom to come out, and hopefully, like you said, there's some calcium in there. It may be beneficial for you in getting that early cell division going. So the point is you might not see anything specific on your mangoes at this particular time because of them preparing for the flower that's going to be coming any day. All that energy is going to be concentrated on forming that bud.
So Corey, how do we get the boron?
Boron, you're probably going to be able to, if you just do some checking in any particular fertilizer companies, because most of them would have it. Here in the United States, I can actually go down to the store. There's actually a product called borax, which people use in their laundry, and that's something that works. But just if you have any fertilizer companies or anything like that in the area, you can check with them to see if they have any boron products, because typically boron is very water soluble, depending on the forms it needs. But you got to be you definitely want to do some research as far as finding out what is how much you would need on that particular spray and everything. Boron, if overapplied, can be quite a toxic element.
Okay.
So you want to be very, very careful with your application rate of that. Make sure you know what your mixture rate and everything is with boron.
Okay. Does Epsom salt have boron?
I'm sorry?
Epsom
Does
salt.
Epsom
Does it
salt?
contain?
No.
No, that's
No.
magnesium sulfate.
Okay.
The one we use is sodium borate. One of them, sodium borate. Solubor is the name brand, or Granulbor. I'll share that in the. Is that working on WhatsApp? Sending stuff there? Is that the good
Yes.
place?
Yes.
Okay.
You talked of sea salt.
Sea salt may have a little bit of boron. I don't. It's got 80 elements in it. It probably does have a little bit, but probably not enough to be a source.
Okay.
Here's, if you can see my picture, my video right now. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
This is a product that we have in the United States. You can actually buy it at the grocery store. People use it as in the laundry. It's just simply sodium borate. Yeah, sodium borate. I believe that's 11% boron, and it dissolves very easily in water. But this is what I've used, just simply because it's easy to get a hold of here in the United States. So I don't know if you see that product, and you can do some looking around in like grocery and any stores that might sell some laundry type products. It's possible over there you might find something. Just make sure that it would be straight sodium borate in there and not mixed with any type of soaps or anything like that. I doubt it would be. It would probably be straight boron. But you might be able to find it in some type of store, something like that over there that would have sodium borate.
Okay.
And also, I think Corey and Joshua, maybe the challenge also with the agriculture is the timing of improving your soil biology and plant biology. Because is it possible that you can do all these things, but if you're doing at the wrong timing, you won't get the good results that we are looking for?
Yeah, oh yeah, certainly. I mean, especially, with you guys, your soil is not going to shut down as much as a cooler climate. You guys are kind of in your cool season right now, as far as if you want to call it cool. But I don't know if it's gonna, other than rain in your guys' situation. Obviously, like up here in the north. When it starts getting cold, things start to slow down in your biology, especially if you're getting snow and everything like that. But we don't get that where I'm at. But in your guys' situation, I'm assuming that your biology is probably fairly active year round, because you guys don't get those cold temperatures. So the timing is probably for you guys, as far as biology, is probably, I don't know if there's windows. I don't know. Maybe Joshua would know on that, but I'm thinking because you guys are on the equator, that your guys' biological activity is probably almost fairly uniform throughout the year, or at least close to it. Do you have any thoughts on that, Joshua?
Yeah.
Joshua is breaking up.
lost
No.
you?
No, I'm here, guys. Sorry, my wife asked me to handle something real quick. Corey, I'm with you on that. I really don't have an experience to go on there. To go to Sammy. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what Corey I'm saying is maybe we need to tackle in these sessions when to do soil biology and plant biology, because do you think it can just be that you can do plant biology at any time, like you want to tackle the issue with leaves, you want to do tackle the issue to do
Okay.
with calcium? Yeah, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, as far as timing of various things, you have to, I think you really have to deal with it on a, I think like Joshua said, you can, in your guys' situation, as far as the amendments to your soil, I think you guys can pretty much do that anytime. Even though it's going to be late to benefit her mango bloom, it will probably at least kick in enough to where it will help during the fruit fill stage. But for the initial bloom, we're looking at, so basically whatever amendments need to, phosphorus, some calcium, you know, these various things that are low, these can be added now to the soil. Just recognize that what we're getting at is, as far as the timing of the upcoming bloom, in order to get the best possible situation with that upcoming bloom, it's probably going to take some type of foliar application to get the best potential out of that bloom, just because it's so late in the year. If you had another month or two, you might or 3, you might have a little bit more time with direct soil applications. But in order to get this bloom as effective as possible, you're probably looking at a foliar application, which is going to be beneficial in many circumstances anyhow, even on a yearly basis. I'm sure Joshua will recommend when you're getting ready to bloom, to benefit as much as you can on that bloom, some type of foliar application is probably almost always going to have some benefit at that stage.
So let me understand this, Corey, because I'd like to get the point clearly, because I'm seeing that we are having a low photosynthesis levels in, that is why the mangoes are falling or are cracking when they are reaching that time of ripening. Now, what will be the best stage to do maybe what we call fertigation, that is plant biology, applying the liquid fertilizers on the plant, more so on the case of Sister Florence and with the mango behaving like that? What will be the right time for fertigation so as to help in a higher photosynthesis level?
Okay. As far as photosynthesis goes, if you're working on specifically photosynthesis, I think that's something that you can pretty much address. Maybe Joshua is probably going to have to chime in here, but I'm assuming that with photosynthesis, that is something that you can work on. As far as timing goes, that is something you could probably work on consistently.
Yes.
It's bloom is something obviously that happens like once a year in most cases. This is like a critical time that you're focused on what can you do with the bloom right now, and what minerals can we apply, because you don't want to, if like for example, you can apply a potassium right now, and if the quantity is too much, it can really hurt the bloom because it can compete with the calcium, and you're going to have problems with your cell division and everything. So you want to be careful with that particular thing. I don't know if magnesium or nitrogen would have as much of an issue, but for her particular case, which with the mango bloom, the biggest factor right now is getting ready for that bloom.
Okay.
In the cell division.
So the issue is that we learn the key minerals and when they can be used and when they cannot be used. That is what I just get from what you're saying.
Right. Correct. And then after once those mangoes begin, once they've gone through that cell division, which I don't know what it like, a lot of plants it might be a few weeks. I'm just trying to think on my own. It seems like in my particular case, mangoes, it's fairly long. The bloom stage to where you see pea-sized fruit is actually fairly quick with mangoes. The development of the flower is pretty lengthy, but once they actually open up and bloom, you start seeing pea-sized mangoes pretty quickly, and I'm sure they would recognize that too. And then that will mangoes seem to go pretty quickly to expanding in size. So I'm assuming that the cell division stage on mango is probably closer to that 10 to 14 day windows that a lot of fruits have. Once that cell division stage is over, we are calcium still plays a role, but potassium then becomes an important situation. But we're also talking about, like you said, the photosynthesis issue, the energy. If we got small leaves, we got an issue with phosphorus. There's energy problems here to getting nutrition and energy into that fruit, and so you're getting fruit drop and everything like that. So you're probably to start really focusing on photosynthesis. Once those blooms start setting some fruit, whatever you can do with photosynthesis, I'm just assuming that more than likely based on her soil test and everything that's going on, there's certainly, once those mangoes set fruit and begin filling, there's not going to be enough energy to start growing at all to, in this particular case, for those trees to also grow at the same time. When you have a tree that can both grow and set its fruit and grow fruit, you have a tree that's got good energy. But the tree in this particular case, it's going to do one or the other. And if it can't get the energy to do fruit, it's going to drop that fruit. Or any fruit that does make it, like Florence said, isn't going to have a lot of flavor. And it may be a situation where this would have to be a management decision on Florence's part. It's like, do you even want to is this a situation where do you even want to try to get a mango crop this year? Maybe you want to sacrifice, like she said, the fruit can be so bad in some years. It's just like, okay, you know what? Let's just cut our losses. We need to get this tree trying to do better for next year. So it may be a situation where perhaps she may want to start focusing on the health of the tree overall and getting growth, bigger leaves, that photosynthesis, and preparing that tree to be in a better place next year, because you'll have more time. We have a thing, like in my case, I tried to let my mangoes grow for a few years, because obviously the healthier that tree can get, the better fruit you're going to get. So you may try to get fruit this year, but it may hinder the tree's potential to where you might be better off to go ahead and get this tree growing and doing as well as it can this year and use as much time as you have. And then next year, you could potentially have more fruit next year than what you would get this year and next year combined. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Florence, that's a management decision you would have to make in your situation. I'm curious what Joshua might think on that particular case, because obviously it depends on some growers. Some growers are going to be in a situation that's like, hey, we've got to get a cash crop now. We can't focus on that in that particular situation. But maybe Florence has already mentioned that in the past she has had to cut the crop early, and maybe that might be a management decision that you could do right now and try to, obviously with with mangoes, I don't know how about it is in your area. We got to be a little bit careful with mangoes in Florida because of the cool weather. What some people will do when it blooms, you can cut the blooms off. So that way the tree will go to vegetative growth. The problem is with mangoes in Florida, the cool weather, if you prune those flowers off too early, the tree just reblooms. I don't know how it would do in your guys' area. So now you're wasting even more time and more energy on another bloom. And so in Florida, we have to wait for those blooms to, if we don't want to get fruit that year, because we want the tree to grow, we have to let those blooms set a little bit of fruit and develop just a little bit and get the temperatures warmed up, usually into April, and then we can prune the blooms off and the tree will start growing vegetatively and we can prepare for the next year. I don't know how that works in your guys' particular area, but that's something, if you're wanting to focus this year on getting these trees healthier and growing and not getting any mangoes this particular year, that's something you have to study and figure out for your particular area. Well, that is a question. Maybe Florence can answer that as far as from her opinion. Is she really wanting to focus on trying to get mangoes this year? Or does she think that it would be better to try to get some issues taken care of in the soil and get these trees in a place to where they have far more energy going into next year and potentially have a mango crop next year that might be more than it would be this year and next year combined? Because if you try to get a crop this year, you're going to definitely have a very short season of growing once that crop is done, because the tree's not going to have enough energy to grow and do fruit at the same time. Do you understand what I'm saying, Florence?
Yes, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's good advice that we can actually let it go this year and consider more fruiting next year or better produce next year. Usually, I think the fruits come twice in a year in this country. I think it is.
Oh, really? You guys will have two
Sammy, is
blooms
it?
a year?
Sammy,
Yes.
am I correct? Yeah, it is twice a year.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that really, okay, that's something we don't experience here in Florida. I didn't realize you could get two blooms. So basically you would finish up a harvest and then the tree would rebloom.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So that in that particular situation, you're definitely not, that tree is definitely going to, if that tree is constantly in a reproductive mode, it is really gonna, unless we get some energy to that tree and get it healthy in a place, it's just simply not going to be prepared to handle all of that constant reproductive activity, basically almost year round. I mean, what are you getting? Are you, as far as leaf flushes, are you getting more than a single leaf flush in a year? Or are you getting just basically bloom and fruit set? Or is the second bloom even weaker than the first bloom? How's that going?
Sammy?
When the rains are much, the bloom is not that good. But when the rains are little, the bloom is good and the produce is good.
Okay. Is that because of disease issues from the rain?
Yes, the fungal infection, anthracnose.
Oh, okay, yep, anthracnose, very common with mangoes, especially with wet conditions, and especially in a situation where trees are obviously limited in their nutrition and their health supply. But yeah, it sounds to me with that much. Now, I guess the next issue is I don't know, and your guys, like I said, here in Florida, what triggers mango bloom is the cool weather. The cool weather trigger. You guys don't have that cool weather, so I'm assuming your guys' cultivars, the triggering aspect of what's causing your trees to bloom twice a year is going to be different than what we experience here in Florida. So what I'm curious is, what I'm wondering about is how difficult would it be to get your guys' trees to concentrate on vegetative photosynthesis and not blooming. It's like if you're trying to get this tree to not bloom, maybe Joshua, you can talk to them about your experiences in a situation where it's like, here we're wanting this tree to not focus on blooming and stuff like that. What can we do to get this tree to focus on vegetation over the next year and try to not waste time and energy on blooming?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Corey. One I might have to get some help with. I just been kind of reading about, again, I kind of touched on early, and it may be something you and I need to look a little closer into is auxin versus cytokinin dominance. Sounds like it's a big issue of whether the mango is staying on the tree or not. And there's that period that we're talking about, that rapid cell expansion phase. It looks like it flipping to auxin dominance versus cytokinin dominance. That's going to be the key probably to whether we're growing shoot growth or trying to, auxins are concentrated in the leaf tips and then the, I guess in the root tips. And we going into reproduction, we really want to see the higher cytokinin dominance. Again, it kind of goes back to finding a good quality seaweed and putting it into our production system. I think that's, as far as getting it not to bloom, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Corey. I mean, if go back to photosynthesis, if you got nitrogen, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, and manganese, and if you have anthracnose, that typically is manganese and calcium deficiencies. So you are really heavily weighted in manganese in your soil, but I question how much is actually in the leaf tissue. I think that's instead of messing around with trying to keep it blooming or not blooming, I hear what you're saying, Corey, is we may never get a healthy tree if it continues to throw fruit out there, but we're not harvesting the fruit, at this point. And if we can get on it right this second with some of this thought process of getting our calcium up, our phosphorus up, our boron up, getting our manganese up, we may actually hold that fruit and may be fine. So calcium, obviously, if we want calcium moving from the soil up through all of the veins of the plant. Calcium's heavy, but it's the trucker of all minerals. So if we get calcium moving, we're going to get everything flowing the way we want it. We have to. I think we're onto something here. I think if we can use some well-timed foliars over the next month, I think we should be able to do both. And as soon as we finish that cell, division stage, then we can really go back to focusing on photosynthesis again and driving that. But
thank you so much,
sir.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe, I don't know, Florence, if we can get into the second part of this next week and explore more on this. Maybe we will have gathered some questions and all that stuff. Sister Florence?
Yeah, that's still fine.
Yeah.
That's still fine, though I will be traveling. I hope I'll be having stable network, but it is fine. If Sammy will be there, that's still okay.
Yeah, I think, Joshua and Corey, we can get into the second part of this soil test of Sister Florence and explore it maybe to another dimension that we haven't gone through, and see what we can recommend and all that stuff, the missing pieces. I don't know what you can say. We are overboard time.
I see.
Gotcha.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
we can definitely think about
Sister
some.
Florence will be traveling. Yes, Corey.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's good. We can think about it. What are the situations? What is the best route to go? Do you want to go after trying to do like Josh was saying? Maybe, with some well-timed foliars and everything, maybe these trees can get what they need to go ahead and set fruit, and you can get a good crop this year, and we can get some energy into this tree and get it growing at the same time. And figure out what's the best way to accomplish that.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry that I cut you short, Brother Joshua, but I want to take this to the second part of it, and on next Sunday we can continue where we've left and look at the issue of photosynthesis and the blooming part, how we can prevent this and increase the other side of it so that we may not hurry through it because of time.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
meanwhile, we'll also try and look at what is available in the market.
Yes.
Yes.
In order to correct. Yeah.
Yes, particularly like we were saying, phosphorus, calcium, boron,
And
Yes.
nitrogen.
Yes. Okay, we will. Thank you
So,
very much. I really appreciate.
Yes.
I want
I'm
to
sure,
thank you
I did
all
want to
who
ask
tuned in.
Joshua a question. Joshua, with her very, very low pH, I realize there's oxidation issues with manganese.
Yeah.
Would you assume? I mean, I guess I would assume that the tree is able to get proper manganese with those levels and
True.
such a exceptionally low pH.
Mm-hmm.
Although
Yeah.
obviously there is the potential for, but this isn't an area that's being, obviously these are trees that are growing in an area that's not being tilled up.
Yes. Yeah. So theoretically, that should be reduced, and you're right. We probably do have those, and probably again, it's probably more calcium. But
Yeah, it's hard to say without maybe one of that might be something. One of the things you might want to consider, Sister Florence, is the potential of you might not have like a sap analysis available to you, but maybe like a leaf tissue test or something like that in the future to see what is the history of these leaves. What are they getting and what are they not getting? You can do a leaf. That same company that did your soil test, you can send leaf tissue in, and they can test the leaf tissue, and then that explains to you to a degree over time what has this tree been actually taking up. Now there are, as Josh would tell you, there are some minerals, especially like iron, that it might tell you that there's iron in that leaf, but there's definitely some faultiness with iron in a leaf tissue test. That's why these guys at AEA do sap analysis. It's much more accurate, but it might not be, sap analysis might not be something that is available to you in that particular area. And you're looking at quite an expense versus a simple leaf tissue test. But would you recommend, Joshua, that that's something she might want to look at?
yeah, it'd be helpful. Yes.
Then we would know for sure. It's like, okay, yep, you're getting manganese in there. You're getting, or maybe you might be even surprised. You might even be surprised, and it's like, hey, wait a second. The soil test is showing there's like no phosphorus, but the leaf is showing that it does have phosphorus. That would tell you you at least have some biology that's doing something, because somehow that tree is getting phosphorus when the soil test is telling us there's no phosphorus.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still assuming that based on the energy issues of the tree, that the tree is probably not getting phosphorus.
Okay. We'll try that. I hope it is not very expensive.
Typically, a leaf tissue test is probably what, about the same cost as a soil test, Joshua?
Yeah, $35 usually. $35, $40. Yeah.
So whatever your soil test will cost, a leaf tissue test is about the same.
Okay. Right.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. And God bless you all. We want just to pray and end the session, and we'll be joining in God willing next week. So Sister Florence, can you close up with a word of prayer?
Okay, I will. Let's pray. Our Father and our God in heaven, we come before you again this wonderful evening. Thank you so much for that which you have been able to help us do, oh Lord, even looking into this soil analysis and having recommendations and the key takeouts that we have from it. Lord, we pray that you help us, that we may be able to find a place where we can get the products that are recommended, Lord, and that you'll be able to help us to restore the soil so that we can get the right produce from it. Holy Father, we thank you even for Joshua and for Corey and the rest of the team, Lord. Continue to bless them even for the work that they are doing. Oh Lord, we really appreciate that which they are doing, and we pray that you continue to bless them together with their families, and even Sammy and all of us who are here today. May your will continue to be done in our lives. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I will say, Florence, before we go, just looking at your soil test, at least one of the good things is there's nothing like extremely alarming in your soil test that is like, oh man, this is going to be so hard to fix. As far as going forward in the future, your soil test looks like your soil is very fixable.
Yes.
I see a lot of potential.
Amen.
Yes. Is this mango grown from seed or is it from plants?
Grafted trees?
It's grafted.
Oh, grafted trees. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, blessings to you guys. Love you. God bless you. God said it's our job to plant and water, his job to make them grow. So we'll let God do his job and we'll do ours.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Okay,
Amen.
you have a good day, all of you there.
Blessings, guys.